His thoughts were like a shower of red-hot glowing needles in his head, an almost unbearable pain. He did his utmost to remain calm, to think clearly. The worst thing was fear. The fear that Jim would unleash his dogs and hunt him down, like the terrified beast of prey he had become. Jim's dogs, they were what he was most afraid of, all through that long night of November 18th, when he had run until he was exhausted and had hidden among the decomposing roots of a fallen tree. He imagined that he could hear them closing in. Jim never lets anyone escape, he thought. He seemed to me to be filled by an endless and divine source of love, but the man I have followed has turned out to be someone quite different. Unnoticed by us, he changed places with his shadow or with the devil, whom he was always warning us about. The devil of selfishness, who keeps us from serving God with obedience and submission. What appeared to me to be love turned into hate. I should have seen this earlier. Jim himself warned us about it time and again. He gave us the truth, but not all at once. It came slowly, a creeping realization. But neither I nor anyone else wanted to hear it. The truth buried between the lines. It was my fault. I didn't want to see it. In his sermons and in all his teachings, he did not only talk of the spiritual preparations we needed to undergo to ready ourselves for the day of judgment. He was also always telling us that we had to be ready to die. He arrested the train of his thoughts and listened. Wasn't that the dogs barking? But no. It was only a sound inside him, generated by his fear. He went back in his confused and terrified mind to the apocalyptic events in Jonestown. He needed to understand what had happened. Jim was their leader, shepherd, pastor. They had followed him in the exodus from California when they could no longer tolerate the persecution from the media and the state authorities. In Guyana, they were going to realize their dreams of a life of peaceful coexistence with nature and each other in God. And at first, they had experienced something very close to that. But then it changed. Could they have been as threatened in Guyana as in California? Would they be safe anywhere? Perhaps only in death would they find the kind of protection they needed to construct the community they strove for. "I have seen far in my mind," Jim said. "I have seen much further than before. The day of judgment is near at hand, and if we are not to perish in that terrible maelstrom, we have to be ready to die. Only through physical death will we survive." Suicide was the only answer. When Jim stood in the pulpit and mentioned it for the first time, there was nothing frightening about his words. Initially, parents were to give drinks laced with cyanide to their children. Cyanide which Jim had stockpiled in plastic containers in a locked room at the back of his house. Then the grown-ups would take the poison. Those who were overcome with doubt in the final instance would be assisted by Jim and his closest associates. If they ran out of poison, they had guns. Jim would make sure that everybody was taken care of before he put the muzzle to his own head. He lay under the tree, panting in the tropical heat. His ears strained to catch any sound of Jim's dogs, those large, red-eyed monsters that had inspired fear in all of them. Jim had told them that everyone in his congregation, everyone who had chosen to follow his path and come to Guyana, had no choice but to continue on the path laid out by God. The path which James Warren Jones had decided was the right one. It had sounded so comforting. No one else would have been able to make words like death, suicide, cyanide, and weapons sound so beautiful and soothing. He shivered. Jim has walked around and inspected the dead, he thought. He knows I am missing, and he's going to send the dogs after me. The thought clawed its way out of his mind. The dead. Tears began to run down his face. For the first time, he took in the enormity of what had happened. Maria and the girl were dead. Everyone was dead. But he did not want to believe it.